India continues to be rocked by the pandemic. It's reported more than 52,000 new cases, the biggest daily jump so far. Total infections now stand at nearly 1.6 million. Maharashtra is the worst hit state with over 400,000 infections, and Tamil Nadu follows with more than 200,000 cases. Delhi and Andhra Pradesh also have high caseloads. Rebecca Bunnan joins us live from Mumbai for more on this story and to get the latest. Rebecca, while major cities like Delhi and Mumbai are seeing infections ease, the caseload in rural areas is rising rapidly now.
Yes, that's right. It's been another record daily spike in terms of the number of confirmed coronavirus cases. And if we look at the figures for Mumbai, for example, we can see that Mumbai is now reporting around 700 new infections in 24 hours, whereas a few weeks ago, the numbers were actually double that in terms of the number of daily cases that were confirmed. However, the wider state is seeing some 7,000 cases across Maharashtra. So a lot of these cases are being reported in rural areas. Now, it's a real worry that the virus is spreading in rural areas because they do have weaker health systems. India's public healthcare infrastructure is generally very weak as it is. But if you look at the rural areas in particular, the healthcare infrastructure there is far, far weaker than the major cities like Mumbai and Delhi. And they do have far fewer doctors, hospitals, and resources. So that's really a big concern. And of course, we saw a lot of people moving out to the rural areas once the lockdown came into effect earlier this year and people were left without work. A lot of the migrant workers did leave the big cities and they've returned to the rural areas. So there are actually even more people in those areas than you'd normally see. And it's much harder for them to get access to testing even compared to the big cities. So that's really a major worry that there is this spread in those areas. And at the same time, it's also the monsoon season, which adds to the spread and the prevalence of other diseases as well. So some doctors are saying that it really is going to be a struggle for India to cope with these rising numbers of cases, particularly in those kinds of areas.
Rebecca, despite the surge that we're seeing, the government has evidently issued new guidelines to lift existing restrictions. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, that's right. So yesterday, the central government announced what it describes as Unlock 3, which will see some further easing of restrictions. For example, from the beginning of August, the central government has permitted gyms to reopen, yoga centres. It's also lifting the need for a night curfew. So there have been some further relaxations to the guidelines for the country. However, having said that, there are also a lot of restrictions that are still in place. Schools, for example, and colleges, they still remain closed. So there are a lot of things that still remain closed, like cinemas as well. So not everything is opening up. They're still being quite cautious, although there have been various easings of restrictions over the past few months as the government has tried to get the economy moving and get people back into work. But now what we're seeing, of course, it's up to the individual states to decide what relaxations they actually allow. So Maharashtra, of which Mumbai is the capital, for example, has been far, far stricter with its lockdown, and it's extended its lockdown until the end of August. And it's going to allow very few relaxations. It will allow shopping malls to open from the 5th of August, which is something that central government actually allowed some time ago, but Maharashtra decided not to go ahead with because of its large number of cases, but it will allow that. But otherwise, a lot of restrictions are still going to remain in place at least until the end of August. The state of Tamil Nadu in South India, which has been very hard hit by the virus as well, that's also announced an extension of its lockdown, but it is allowing restaurants to reopen for dining customers, but that will only be at 50% capacity. So different states are deciding to go ahead with different relaxations depending on what they see fit really in these circumstances. And of course, people will have to continue wearing masks and so on. So there's still a lot of the country that is largely shut and isn't functioning at the moment because of the virus.
Rebecca, thank you very much for that update, and do stay safe over there. Rebecca Bundan reporting there from Mumbai.